Huples Cat. Welcome to part 3, my updated book review on Selco. Part 3, the truth about death and violence. Violence is something that people like to talk about and give their theories and opinions, but at the same time few of us have experienced the real deep face of violence, being trapped in a prolonged, deteriorating situation. That of course is true. Violence happens very quickly and escalates very rapidly, but is thankfully pretty rare. But if you're in a high crime area and society collapses, expect a lot more violence. And if you're not in a high crime area, expect a huge upswing in violence. Physically training yourself is a great thing. Being physically trained up actually means a lot of things for me that are different from what it means for you. For me, I started with half an hour, then an hour of activity every day, mostly walking. Then I added in a rowing machine, then I added in some weights. What it means to me now is an hour a day of activity, as a minimum. It can be various things. I like to put some hand weights into this and some stretching. I like to do my rowing machine, I like to walk. But every week or two, I like to over-distance myself. I like to go for 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 hours of physical activity. That stresses me, that tests me. You're going to have to build your survival mindset. But there is a catch there. If you build it too firm, too strong, and then there's SHTF and everything that you imagine doesn't fit the given situation or scenario, and you are still pursuing and acting in the way that you imagine dealing with it, you're going to have serious problems. The situation will not adapt to your mindset. The situation will kill you if you are sticking too firm with your plan when it is not working. You simply have to adapt. Now, that's easier said than done. For me, what it means is in the here and now is altering plans, doing things differently, throwing in random activities, random visits, random movements to actually simulate for me the randomness and chaos of SHTF on an occasional basis. This could be as simple as going on a hike and deciding at the halfway point of the hike to double the distance even though I haven't got the water or the food supplies for it. It can be as simple as going on a hike in an urban area and going left instead of right when I always go right. It means adapting by throwing variety at yourself so you get used to the transitions, the changes. It goes for any situation. If your plan and mindset is that you will defend your home until you die, you're probably going to die. When I heard people saying, I'll do that when SHTF, or I'll do this when SHTF, I feel sorry for them. When SHTF, you will adapt and change your given plan according to the situation, or you will not survive. It is the same with violence. Violence is a tool. Generally speaking, in a total collapse of society, day to day, there won't be that much violence outside of high crime areas, and it won't last there for very long because people will kill themselves. Mostly people want to get a feel for who's in their area, who's trustworthy, who's not trustworthy, and not trust anybody. It's going to be an odd time. There's going to be those who are not going to make it, those who are going to make it, and everybody else. Outside your group, you just wish to be very small, invisible. After some time, you do not pay attention to anyone doing violence to others, because quite simply you are still alive and you want to stay that way. As I've said before, and as Selco has said before, sheep dogs are going to die. They can't protect the sheep from the wolves. There's going to be too many wolves. At the same time, the wolves are going to die, because they're going to encounter sheep and sheepdogs that are going to actively try to get rid of them if they pose a threat. The sheep are going to wander around trying to get organised and dying en masse. You have to be both a wolf, sheepdog, in the circumstances, and be adaptable. Irrational hate towards the other, whoever the other could or might be, other religion, group, street, town, nation, because it is very easy to manipulate groups of people through hate and fear. Good times and bad. Successful leaders are going to manipulate the people that follow them. If they can't do it successfully, they'll end up being removed as leader. Strongly suggest you don't try and be a leader. Look, who believes in what Hollywood tells them is real and avoid these people? English is not his first language. People that believe in a Hollywood fantasy version of a disaster, believe in the gun and the girl and the car and their power and not being hurt or injured or killed themselves. They are dangerous individuals in an SHTF. They believe they're going to be fine, because they have some clotting agent and they have a tourniquet. They have no idea what sepsis looks like in its early stages, and they have no idea how to treat it without a hospital. The real world is not Hollywood, and a large part of the problems we have in 2024 is because people treat it like it's a film. In SHTF, nobody's going to get outraged at all about anything. They're just going to try and survive and not get noticed. Getting comfortable with death and how ugly, smelly, dirty and not noble it is essential for a survivalist. Yeah, I guess. Very few people have actually had as many people die on their shift as I have when I was in the ICU. In the course of my career as a nurse, both as a surgical nurse in England and then an ICU nurse in Canada, probably seen hundreds of dead people. But more importantly, I've seen hundreds of people die. And it's not anything other than natural. But I am frankly puzzled, and Selco says get used to it. I'm not quite sure what he's on about here. Unless you want to join a healthcare profession or the police or fire services, you're really not going to see that many dead bodies. And you're certainly not going to see them in the context of a massive ongoing disaster. Even a mass shooting event is pretty tame considering the number of people dead compared to what would happen in the fall of society. I think the important thing is to look at what absolutely freaks you out. It might be getting somebody to spit on you. Whatever it is that really triggers you, really makes you scared and scream and run around like a little girl. And I have quite a few things that I do. Confront them in your imagination. Learn as much as possible about the reality of the fear that you have and try and overcome it. In terms of an SHTF where society's collapsed, you are going to be too busy to be shocked by the number of dead people you're going to see. In reality, you do not know you are prepared until it happens. A lot of survival stores that sell things sell the idea of buy this and you are safe. No, you are not. When SHTF, reality always comes as a surprise. And when the time comes again, it's going to hit everyone like a hammer. A cheap, well, getting more expensive tap. Selco's into extensive training, heavy training, uncomfortable and even a little bit dangerous training to get yourself mentally and physically prepared for the realities of societal collapse. If you could do some real training that is realistic, that would be maybe going camping for 10 days using a trash bag like a tent with 10 small cans of food and 10 litres of water, and then walking every day for 10 kilometres. On the 11th day, run a few kilometres and then shoot and see how accurate you are when your body is wasting away. And still the most important thing is missing. While you are shooting at the beer balls, they do not shoot back at you in order to kill you. Now very few people have 10 days where they can just take off and do this type of training, but his basic point is a very realistic point. This is an extreme version of training, and you want to be careful doing that because you could die. I live in Canada. I could get hypothermia and die if I tried that. I also could get heat stroke if I tried to drink just 1 litre water a day in July. The overarching message I got from the example is pick things that are difficult. In the words of a certain dead president, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. By pushing ourselves as a society and as an individual, we can progress. Who knows what to? Want to get some funny sounding advice? Get good at suffering while still being able to work towards a goal. Comfort in the here and now is going to make your physical and mental ability to survive a disaster, whether it's short-term or ongoing, whether it's local or national or global, much harder. Seeking comfort in a disaster is not really going to be a good idea. For those who are observant who've noticed I've been sweating a bit since I started this video, that's because I went out and did 30 minutes really hard around the forest, because I want to train myself. It's easy just to do this all day. Not good for me in a disaster. If you hear that there is a unit coming and they will torture and kill everyone in the way, including your kids and your woman, you have two choices: to fight to the last or to run. In the movies, folks will fight to the last, but in reality, most folks will run. Now, there was a cleansing side in Yugoslavia in the 1990s, so Selco is talking about stuff he actually probably is aware of, either directly or second-hand. Certainly in Rwanda, and I can give you countless other examples like Cambodia and other areas, and Europe during World War II, where a group of people for whatever reason were targeted by the majority and wiped out, including babies. It's another main message from Selco: no matter how much stuff, no matter how much time and labour you've got invested in a static place, if the odds of you holding that place without being damaged, let alone killed, become high, run away. Run away with nothing if you have to. Rebuild, restart. Life ends quickly in an ongoing disaster. To be more precise, really dangerous guys do not look for trouble. They look at how to avoid it because they know what trouble may bring. It is the same with psychos. If you come across someone who's wearing funny clothes and acting crazy, he's probably just playing. Real psychos try to look normal. The level of violence rises around you, you still want to blend in. Do not stick out as weak, and also do not stick out as extra tough. Well, maybe a bit more tough than average, but that is enough. He doesn't make a big deal of it in this book, but he does mention that the outside stayed outside when you entered his house. And I think here he means the violence of what he was doing outside ended at the doorway. But it also equally would mean clothing. Clothing is very important. It identifies status, class, race, a whole bunch of things. In an ongoing disaster, I have the ability to have nice fresh clothes, and in fact be shaved. That might not be a good idea. I need to look pretty much like everybody else looks around me, at least when I'm out in the public view. One of the methods I've always said is you should have outdoor clothing that you only use in a disaster, and it should always look slightly worse than everybody else's clothing. And I still kind of stick to that. I still think looking like you have less than everybody else will probably be better for you. If you look like you can just be taken out for fun, that won't be better for you. He died when he became too careless because he believed he was way too strong and too smart. A 20-year-old woman stabbed him during a trip. trade. He was too confident. Nobody talks about living in high gun ownership areas, but think about it. An 8-year-old child hidden in the woods can actually put a bullet into you and end you, no matter your training, experience or preparation. And yet at the same time, you can't go through life, even in an ongoing disaster, at every moment with adrenaline at maximum. You'll get sick. So you'll have to figure out what you're doing and take intentional decisions. Have some plans before it happens, but be flexible. Sometimes I see some trouble in front of me. Let's say I see some guys drinking and looking at me. When I see possible trouble, you know what I will do? I will avoid it. I will go to the other side of the street. Now you can call me coward. I do not care. But the thing is that I know if I get involved in a fight, I'll do some things without hesitation. Well, we can all sound tough. The problem with this is if he sees a group of people doing that, what he needed to do was see them before they saw him and turn around and go in a completely different direction. Don't walk past danger. Even if you cross the road, the danger might cross the road to see you. And if you think that you can do certain things because of your experiences as a military or a policeman or because you watch certain internet channels, it doesn't matter. If an armed group attacks you, your chances of being maimed and dying, especially when there is no society, is huge. At the end of the day, using violence is a very bad thing. It destroys you. It can also destroy the relationships with people close to you because it changes you and changes how people see you. Possibly, I know a lot of people have fought and killed people over the years and they absolutely are okay with it. It depends why you're fighting. There's a whole bunch of moral issues here. And I don't mean moral in terms of what other people think about you, but I mean internal problems that you might have with the moral quandaries of what's right and wrong from your point of view with what you're made to do, what you have to do. Again, reading good psychology before the disaster is a good idea. Well, thanks for watching. This was the third video of a 4-part series on this book. I reviewed this book in 2019 and it changed a lot of my philosophy. Reviewing it now, 5 years later, I'm shocked at how much it had an effect on me. Whatever you do in a disaster, try to help people, try to help yourself. Don't give up. Keep going. Next week, part 4 of this book and the end of it, and the shortest section is less than 20 pages. But there's a couple of really interesting things in that section that we need to talk about in the comments. Thanks for watching. Doodles. I'm going to have to get rid of you, Wolfie. At this point, I'm going to abandon this and I'm going to go for a walk. And I hope the dog falls asleep or at least eats its breakfast. Wolfie is drinking water. This has been a Thirsty Terrier 2024 production.